Welcome to the Hunt, Fish, Travel podcast, the first and longest running female hosted hunting podcast. When she's not gearing up for turkey season, she's helping you navigate your trip of a lifetime. And now, here's your hostess, Carrie Zilka.
All right, we are live.
Hey, what's going on, Carrie?
Hey, Ron. Welcome to the Hunt, Fish, Travel podcast. For the listeners, if you don't listen to the Hunting Dog podcast, you are missing out. Today's guest, we have Ron Boehme, who is the host of the Hunting Dog podcast. And we're going to talk. We're just going to talk. It's going to be kind of off the cuff. I don't have a lot of questions written down because I'm not even sure what kind of questions to ask. Because we're thinking about buying a house, and eventually I'd like to buy a hunting dog, and I have no idea where to even start. So we've got Ron on the line to tell us all sorts of stuff about hunting dogs and considerations for buying a puppy. So, Ron, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carrie. I'll do my best without trying to bust your bubble. But
okay.
I would say you can always fix a house later and make it the way you want it, but the dog you're kind of stuck with. So I would say do at least as much research on the dog as you're doing your house if you're going to get one day.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. I started out, my first dog, I moved from Chicago, lived right in the city limits of Chicago until I was in my 20s. And as soon as I got to Michigan, I said, oh, I got to start. I used to hunt in Illinois, pheasant hunt and rabbit hunt, but no dog. And I had to get a dog. And the first one I found in a newspaper for $40, first German short hair. And I got exactly that. I got $40 worth of German short hair. Okay, so although one of my guests a couple of years ago on the podcast actually got his dog from a Craigslist ad, and it did turn out okay. So I guess nowadays it might be, better than a newspaper ad going online. But I think when people getting their first dog, you really got to think about how much you really are going to hunt and be honest with yourself. Because, honestly, the Labrador is the most popular dog in this country. Anybody knows that. If it was on a Jeopardy $500 question, number one registered breed in America is the Labrador Retriever, and 1/1,000,000th of them never put a duck in their mouth. Okay? So, you can buy a sporting dog. It doesn't have to go hunting. But then there are some sporting dogs out there that really need to work and exercise more than other ones. So that would be like my first piece of advice to anybody. Be real honest with yourself, because everybody, just like when you get a new gun, you're going to go hunt a whole bunch and you buy new camo and I'm going to use it every day. And guess what happens? Work gets in the way, life gets in the way, and everything else. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and then if you're, and this is another thing I tell people, because I breed dogs as well, and not heavy duty, but about a litter a year maybe, and I tell everybody, first thing you should do is build yourself some kind of an outside kennel run. I know you're going to buy a house somewhere, and you're going to that might not look good, but put some kind of an outside run connected to the garage. Doesn't have to be big. You can put a little fence around it if you got neighbors that don't like looking at it. Because there's a lot of times when, you want to go out or you've got to go check on somebody, it's who knows where. Work late, husband's got to work late, you guys got to want to go away for the weekend, you just want someone to feed him for a night. It is so convenient. That usually falls on a lot of deaf ears from the people who buy dogs from me. I don't know why, but it does. So that's the second thing you have to buy with your house. You have to get a kennel. So
yeah.
Budget that in.
That is good to know, because if you are legitimately considering purchasing a puppy, a dog, for any kind of a dog that you're going to need a kennel in the backyard, there are a lot of homeowners associations that wouldn't even allow that. So
yeah,
it's a big consideration. You don't want to buy a house, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, now I can't even get the dog I want because I can't put up a kennel in the backyard. That's really, I had no idea.
Yeah, I've always lived out in the kind of the country in the last 30 years, but yeah, you're right. There's some neighborhoods that they don't even let you put a picket fence up if they don't if they have it written that way. So, and you can get around that by putting a small run in your garage. Just I'm always saying somewhere where that dog people, I think, make the biggest mistake. They get a puppy in there, and if they, people say, when's the right time to get a puppy? There's no real right time. I have people that call me up and say, are you going to have any litters in the summer when the kids are going to be off school? Because that's when we want to start a dog. I'm like, I can't time that a year ahead of time with heat cycles and things like that. There's just,
right.
I mean, nothing's that guaranteed, So you make the commitment and you get, you have an inside kennel for it when it's in the house and you're not able to pay attention to it. When you can, get that outside kennel built, or at least some kind of a little kennel run on the wall of the garage on the inside. Yeah, you might, if you can't put a door out and if your neighborhood won't let you, I am sure, if the dog poops in his little kennel run, that's not the end of the world. I mean, we're not talking about leaving them out there a long time. But with that outside kennel run, I find the dogs, they're less bored. If you just go to work and they're in your crate training process with a young dog, he's got to learn that crate's his place and his favorite place to be, and he loves sleeping there. And if you're lucky, you can come home at lunch, or somebody can. But if not, the pup could be in there 8 or 9 hours for a time. Well, it'd be a lot better if he was able to just get some fresh air, go back into another little box, but then be able to go stretch his legs out and look at the birds in the yard and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people don't do it, and I think it's really important. So that's the first step.
So let me ask you a couple questions on that. So like, I live in Wisconsin. It's freaking cold all of the time. Like fucking all the time. It's cold.
It's not all the time. I was there. It was hot. I was there once and it was hot.
I was like, for 3 days in August.
Yeah, that's when it was, August. It was hot.
But no, all joking aside, we have a very, the DNR stock pheasant, so we have a lot of people who enjoy the upland bird game hunting here. So if I'm thinking about getting a puppy and I'm going to do like the outside kennel, are there certain breeds maybe that would be better suited for our colder climate? Because it's a lot different than having a dog in Alabama as it is having an inside outdoor dog in Wisconsin. But
right. I would say, there's a few breeds that you may want to, you're probably going to worry about it more than it's worth. Because, again, when I say an outside kennel run, I always have, and this would be where, like I always tell people, I don't expect anybody to build a kennel building with inside-outside runs. I'm just talking about like a small fence. You can buy it from Tractor Supply or Farm and Fleet, and it's got a gate on it, maybe put a sunroof on, a little tarp over it. Doesn't have to be big. And then if you have a little access door to the inside of the garage or a garden shed, a lot of people do it next to a garden shed, you could literally build or buy a small dog crate. Now, not the kind you put in the car. It'd be like more of a wooden or aluminum skin dog crate. And I had German Shorthairs for years. They do not have a lot of body fat on them. They don't have much of a coat. It's a very short coat. And in the beginning, before I built my kennel, that is exactly how they lived through the winter. And, Michigan's not a lot different than you guys.
No.
It depends on what part of, Michigan we're talking about. But, so, and you put some straw in there, and I'm telling you what, a dog curl up in a box. Don't overbuild the box size, as a good friend of mine's uncle or father-in-law did for him. You could put 3 people and the dog in it. It does not hold the heat. But you literally, that's another thing. I mean, I'm going to kind of jump around. When people think about getting a dog crate, they tend to get a crate that's bigger than the dog needs. The dog, historically, any wild canine, they're going to go into something that can barely fit in and barely turn around and curl up and lay down. And dogs are the same way. If you saw sometimes how many dogs I could pack in a box, on a hunting trip, and see 2 or 3 noses looking at the bars, everyone would be like, oh, my God, they're giant. No, they can all get in there, turn around, and they snuggle up. So, the weather really isn't an issue. It's more of an issue if you're going to be more of a cold weather hunter. You might want a dog with a little more coat to it, maybe in the Flushing breeds or some of the rough-coated breeds in the pointing world that have like a dual coat. They have an outer and an undercoat. They're going to be just a more comfortable dog in the winter. But believe me, I got friends that have German Shorthairs and Weimaraners, and they live all over Wisconsin and Michigan and the upper Midwest, and and they do fine. Okay. You just don't want to, you're not going to duck hunt with them probably. That's in the cold weather. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about crates, though, too. So when we were growing up, and we never, I personally never had hunting dogs growing up. So the whole crate training thing to me seems like it's a relatively new tactic, which I could be completely wrong, could have been around for years and years and years, whatever. But to me, it just seems like it's relatively new, because I never went over to anybody's house and they were like, oh, we got to put the dog in the crate at night. What is the concept behind crate training?
I think it's so you don't have to clean up any poop or pee in the morning, to be honest with you.
For real?
Well, yeah. I mean, no, trust me, that is a part of it, though. And you're right. I know when I was a kid, and I'm quite a bit older than you. I mean, literally, believe this or not, my friend's dad would put his pointer. He would open the trunk of his Ford. And the dog would jump in and he'd close the trunk, and that's where the dog rode on a hunting trip. Yep,
totally.
And people with beagles, they'd put 3 or 4 of them in the trunk. So crates kind of became a luxury thing. And then when they started making these molded or these wire crates for show people, it really just gives you peace of mind, especially when your puppy, when they say crate training the puppy, it's really kind of just, it's kind of like putting a baby in a crib. You talk to anybody who's raised kids, and if they didn't use a crib or a playpen, and I'll guarantee you, the kid doesn't understand confinement and probably can't stand anybody telling them what to do today. Dogs need to learn that, that's not their time, and it's time to settle down. And the crate also represents that. It's like, oh, this is when we don't play. We don't play now. And it's hard to resonate with a puppy, because if the puppy's not ready to quit, he's going to sit in that kennel or that crate in the house, and he is going to cry and whine. And that's where you got to go back to, just like raising kids. You have to put that box somewhere where he can't see you, maybe by the back door or spare room or the basement, and ignore that screaming and crying. And eventually, that crate is nothing more than just a place for that dog to lay down, a given place for that dog to lay down. And then he becomes a better traveling dog too. He kind of understands, I get it. This is where I don't get to jump around, play catch, play fetch. I don't get to, beg for food while we're driving. I'm in a crate, So there's just multi purposes for him. But you're right. Nowadays, even somebody who doesn't know, as my friend, I have a really good friend over in Wisconsin by the name of Al Harmeyer, has a kennel over in Cedar Grove, north of Milwaukee. And he says, even for people who don't know shit from pudding, they know about crate training nowadays. So you're right.
Seriously?
Yeah, everybody knows that term, crate training, whether you know shit from pudding about dogs. They know the term crate training. That's a good question, really, but it's new, but it's not new. Like all the old timers back in the day knew to put their dogs in kennels. They built boxes for them. They used the command. I use the word kennel when I want to go in a crate. I use the word kennel to get in anything, in a door, in a kennel, in another room. I just open the door and say kennel, and the dog just knows that means to go where I'm kind of pointing. But no, I think it's very important, and you rarely will see people breaking those rules. There's a few people whose dogs are truly their children, and they're just mortified at the fact that the dog would sleep in a crate. When they're old enough, I go to Red Roof Inns all over I travel with my dogs everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. And so I always hit Red Roof Inns because they never have a dog. The dog policy is no problem. And when I go in Red Roof Inn, I've got 3-4 dogs sleeping in a king-size bed with me. So, I love having a dog sleep in bed with me, but there's a lot of times when I don't. When they're young, when it's a new dog on the road, I don't want to wake up and step in something. So that crate just has multitude of purposes. But to me, it does teach the dog some control of temperament. He just doesn't always get his way. So that's the most important thing.
Okay, that's interesting. What other kind of training techniques do you use? Is it different training, say, a dog to be a pet than it is a dog to be a hunting dog, especially, say, in the first 6 months? I'm assuming you're going to work with it a lot more, number one. But it's going to, obviously it's going to be more than just sit, roll over, and play dead.
Well, it's pretty close. We don't do the roll over and play dead much, but come sit and stay is what anybody that has a gun dog in the first 6 months is going to work on some of that. Just basic house dog obedience. Come when I call you, stay when I tell you to, and sit, and you also hear people say, well, do you teach a pointing dog to sit? And yes, because it's a command. It's not an instinct for the dog. The dog sits when he feels like it. And when you want him to sit, you got to tell him to sit. So, yeah, come sit, and then eventually heel. Like how many people have you seen going down the street and the dog, even a little dog, is just pulling their arms out of their socket, and it drives me crazy. It's just like, come on, yank, I shouldn't just say yank that dog back ass over tea kettle, but basically teach that dog to walk on a leash. It's not that hard to do. So, yeah, for gun dogs and house dogs, I think that first 6 months of training, basically the same thing. You want them to be good canine citizens. You don't want them to embarrass the hell out of you. You don't want them jumping up on everything. Like a lot of dogs you'll see jump on people, and people see my dog, and I don't let them jump on me, but I let them stand up on their back legs and put their paws on me. And most people can't stand that because, you're getting dog hair or anything on your clothes. But I won't let them jump on me. Like, I won't let them jump at their will to just walk up to me and go bam with their front feet. I won't let them do that. But when they come to me and I can tell they want to, I'll tap my chest and boom, they put their paws up here and we'll give them a big snuggie and, just like a house dog.
Yep.
So the gun dog stuff doesn't have to start too early. Believe me, people do it. People get them on birds real early. They sometimes get them to a trainer, and a good trainer will say, well, here, I'll give you some things to do at home, but he's a little young yet to do any intensive, bird work or obedience work for hunting. So, no, up to 6 months, I'd say same thing. I don't do anything different with my dogs than we've done with my wife's house dogs. Same thing. It's very, very simple.
So at what age, so say I buy a puppy and I've decided I want to, whatever kind of training, whatever kind of hunting dog it is, at what age should I start looking for a trainer? So wait, let's talk a little bit about hiring a professional trainer compared to doing it on your own. What would be the pros and cons to each?
Well, the pro to hiring a trainer, I would say, would come more with the hunt. If you're going to have, if you want to do some hunting with that dog, and you've either you're on your first dog, and you can look at all the YouTube videos and you can read all the books, and it's like, hang on, we got a little dog. Will you guys be quiet? Mother already got a bone and she's telling the other dogs to stay away. So the pros for a trainer would be, if you're going to do something above just have a pet dog, and a trainer will come in very handy, because a good trainer will have you come to the facility. He'll start teaching the dog some good obedience, and then he'll transfer that obedience to you. He'll teach you how to teach the dog. So that, because if you get a trainer that just takes your dog, and you say, I want you to do this with my dog and I'll pick it up next month, it's probably not going to do the same work for you as it did for that trainer. It just, the dog won't have the respect or the rapport built with you. So the pros to having a trainer are big if you're going to get into the sporting world or possibly the competition world with dogs, like retriever competitions and things like that. But the cons to it are, if you think you can just drop it off and it's going to be like magic, you're going to pick the dog up and it's going to be special, that the con would really be what's in your head. You're conning yourself into a quick, easy path, And then with the pros and cons of doing it yourself would definitely be, if you do it right, and really, the best thing people can do is to join a sporting dog club, and there's a gazillion of them all over the country, literally. A lot of times they might be breed specific, but a lot of the clubs would just be a bird dog club, and if it's a good organization, they're going to welcome you in even if you don't have their breed of dog or even that style of dog. Because if somebody shows you some stuff hands-on, it's just way better than you reading a book or looking at YouTube and trying to apply it. So, you know, I tried training my first dog me and my buddy tried training our first 2 dogs by ourselves, and they really sucked, to be honest with you, Carrie, because we didn't know what we were doing. But we got involved. The group that I'm a judge for is called NAVDA, North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association, and so it's a testing and training organization. There's like 70 chapters around the country. In fact, Wisconsin's got 5 chapters itself. And I don't know if that's because there's more hunters there or if they all can't get along in Wisconsin. I don't know why, but there's 5 chapters in Wisconsin. And that's a group that typically it concentrates on the pointing breeds, but I've never ran into a chapter that wouldn't welcome you with a Labrador or a Springer Spaniel or a dog, any of the Flushing breeds, a Chesapeake. Because all the dogs need the same kind of work, exposure to birds, exposure to steadiness and things like that. So I would tell everybody, don't try it by yourself. Don't go solo. Try to find a club. Try to find a group. If you can't do that, then, go to a trainer, but make sure that trainer, and make sure you're able to visit that trainer a lot. Ooh, sounds like a puppy just stepped on something. I don't know if you heard that. If you can find a trainer that'll work with you, that would be your second best bet. But I really like joining a club or group. Plus, then you're going to meet some people. You're going to meet there's always some newbies, so you kind of gravitate toward each other because you're all a bunch of dummies. And then there's always going to be a couple people there with some experience that'll help you. And the other biggest thing is, all the pros and cons and everything else, there's 2 things I tell everybody. You got to develop some thick skin because your dog's going to embarrass you, and you got to admit when things are going wrong. And you cannot wear rose-colored glasses when you're messing with the dog world. And that is so hard for people to do. The minute they get their dog, that's the best breed, or this dog's parents did this, and this. I said, well, your dog's not doing that. So, so why don't you take your sunglasses off and see what the rest of the world looks like. Your dog sucks right now, and let's make it better. That's the 2 biggest pieces of advice. I know I'd like to be deeper, but the 2 oldest things in the world: develop a thick skin, and that works in work and everything else, in school and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's easy. It's simple. It's frustrating.
It's so simple.
It's a little daunting, though. And,
it is.
Believe me, and I get emails every day, people asking me, and when I started the podcast 2 years ago, I did it kind of I like to have kind of like a diary of, friends I hunt with, a few famous people, if I can ever get them on, and that all came together. And then, of course, now, like, you've been podcasting for how many years now?
5.
Yeah. Well, you're way double over me. And, people start asking you questions, and it's starting to become like a little bit of work. But it is amazing. I'm happy that the people who don't know anything are at least writing me. And the only thing I want to say is, well, did you look at the backlog of episodes? All those questions are answered, but they still want to write me an email, and I won't say I answer every email, but darn near every one of them I answer if I can, and try to help them, because it's daunting. You get this dog, and then you read articles that say, make sure you don't get your dog gun shy, make sure you don't get the dog, don't let the dog chase deer, and don't let and all of a sudden, you feel like it's exam time in high school. You're just like, oh no, I didn't study. And but anybody can do it. Honestly, if I could get to this point, anybody could do it, Carrie. Anybody.
Well, that does kind of raise another, just a small question. Like, they always say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So what if I buy a puppy, not really the right breed for me, but I don't obviously want to give it up. I'm trying to train it, and it's like been 1.5 years, and I'm like, it's just not working. Can you go to a trainer and be like, look, I have really screwed up this dog. Can you help me fix it?
You can. but what you just got to go to the right trainer. And honestly, it sounds kind of funny. If a trainer will just say yes, you probably didn't do enough research on the trainer. Okay. Because there's, unfortunately, and God, I hope this doesn't knock down my my downloads and listenership, but there's a lot of trainers out there, a lot of them, but a lot of them are, you know, they have a full-time job during the day, and they cram all this in at night and on the weekends. And believe me, they can do a good job, but, you know, they're trying to make a name for themselves, and they will take a project on that maybe not should have been taken on. So if you did have that dog and you said, here, I didn't do nothing, I think I screwed it up, a good trainer will say, okay, let me evaluate it, or let's get together on Saturday and evaluate it. And he won't say, all right, let me keep the dog from, he could if he saw some potential. But I know some really good trainers, they're going to be honest with you real quick. They could literally call you up 3 or 4 days and go, look, I've tried some stuff, like normal stuff, and I could try a lot more, but I don't see the potential here, or I don't see this fixable. And a good trainer will tell you that, you know. Yeah. But also, a good trainer is invaluable too. I have one here in Michigan that I rely on a lot because, you know, he's younger than I am, but he's been in dogs since he was in high school, and well-known bird dog trainer. And he's just got that approach where, like, he's not looking for the next client. He just wants to solve a problem. And if he doesn't think he can solve a problem, he'll tell you. And it's kind of hard to swallow, because then it's like bringing your kid to another school and the principal says, I don't think your kid's good enough to be at this school. You're like, oh, shit. I didn't realize he was a dumbass, you know? So, that's about all I can tell you in that department. But, yeah, and then there's also dogs that didn't get early exposure, but it didn't really, you know, you could have skipped a few years. If the genetics are there, you should be able to do something with that dog as far as in the bird dog world. But anybody that has hunting dogs, usually they're starting to do some of the game work, whether it's birds or hounds on, you know, raccoons or you know, any of the hound work, or even bears. Those young dogs are going to get some work early in their first year, because they want to see if there's something. They certainly would never wait on purpose, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. So, but if you had a good genetic dog, you know, that the parents hunted and you didn't do nothing with it, there's a good chance that, yeah, there's no reason it wouldn't learn. I don't believe that old dogs can't learn new tricks. It's just a matter of, you know, getting them to learn it and sure. Finding out. That's what's good about certain trainers. You know, it used to be they all had, like, it was all like obedience training, real forceful, and you basically made the dog submit. And nowadays it's a lot of positive reinforcement, and they're almost kind of fooling the dog into doing a good job. And the dog's like, going, oh, you know what, that wasn't so hard. Okay, I'll do that again for you. Yeah. No, it's not rocket science, but it's kind of like, it's like learning a new language, though. It is like learning a new language.
It is, especially for someone who's considering getting into all this stuff and really just has had no exposure to it. I don't know anybody. I mean, I have, like, online friends who have dogs. Right. I don't know anybody personally who has a hunting dog. So for me, someone like me who I love the pheasant hunting out, anytime I go to, like, one of them game farms, I always have to hire somebody with a dog because I don't have one. Right. So all this is really quite fascinating, but it's a little on the overwhelming side. But I have listened to many of your episodes, and that's been very helpful too.
Yeah, and a person could get by with, you know, listening to some of those episodes if they could really, that was a close call. Hey, hang on, listeners, it's time to throw biscuits on the floor. I'm showing everybody what a good trainer I am. There, everybody gets a biscuit. Pitiful. I had one of the probably world-renowned, certainly North American-renowned trainers, George Hickox, on about a month ago. And I had to do that while the dogs were, because I do this all out in my recording studio's in my kennel building, and I told him, he says, yeah, you trained them dogs pretty good, Ron. I'm like, yeah, I sure did. I can get him to quit doing anything if I throw biscuits at him.
Right. Dog treats are man's best friend.
Yeah, exactly. But if you ever wanted to do that, literally, I haven't been too involved with other bird dog clubs, but I know there's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah.
And it'll be such a jump start for anybody to get involved. I mean, obviously, I push NAVDA. If you've got a pointing dog, I push that. The chapters will almost always have somebody like a Walmart greeter that's, kind of says, hey, I noticed you're standing there for two training sessions not doing anything, because not everybody's super outgoing, or you don't want to ask a dumb question. But most chapters, and I will, in NAVDA, and I'm sure, just that my experience has always been with them, most bird dog clubs, whether if you got a retriever, you get involved with a retrieving club, there's always someone's going to help you. And way better than DVDs and videos and YouTube or even listen to my podcast is get somebody hands-on and watch them do something with the dog. And it's like it'd be like the Evelyn Wood speed reading course compared to learning, reading the other way.
Gotcha. So let's talk about your podcast and how you got into dogs and dog breeding. Because your Facebook page, let me pull it back up here, is, well, people can find it by searching the Hunting Dog Podcast.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, like I said, I got that first German Shorthair for $40, and it sucked. And it ran away twice. And the third time, we don't really know if it was hit by a car or not. But a friend, well, you never know. I mean,
I know.
There literally are runaway dogs, too. That'd take a whole other podcast episode. But there are some dogs, and you'll know it when you have one. They are just bound and determined to piss you off and run away, okay? Usually they're not running away far, but the ones that don't want to come back, it's probably a good reason for that. But so once I had that, what I call that crappy dog, a friend of mine had a good German Shorthair that we hunted grouse and woodcock over, and I said, I've got to find one. So I went to a reputable kennel out in, it happened to be in Rockford, Michigan. It's no longer there, but this is almost 30 years ago. And I spent more money than I should have, or more money than I told my wife I was going to spend. And I picked up a puppy and started kind of, she was never a super well-trained obedience dog, but she was a good hunting dog. We did enough of the right stuff with her. And then what happens with everybody, they're like, you know what? We should have puppies. We should breed your dog and my dog. And anybody who doesn't start out as a backyard breeder, then you obviously were raised in a family who was already breeding dogs, and you already got some, background, because most everybody starts out in their backyard with their first litter, your buddy's dog and your dog, and let's try to sell these puppies. So I never did a lot of that, but I've just been a dog nut, ever since I was born. We had dogs. There was a picture of me with a hunting dog, and I was like 2 years old. And there's a grin on my face, so obviously there was some connection there. And so once I had that dog and grew up the litter of puppies and actually found homes for them, then you get the mistake of going, I could do that again. I could do that again, And then, like, one day I was just a dog man, and the next day I was a breeder. But so I really kind of just jumped in with both feet. But immediately by my second litter, I literally, again, through chapter help and friends help and people who've done it before me, I did what they did. I just literally, I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. I did exactly what they did. I built a certain kind of kennel. I built a certain kind of whelping box. I didn't try to do it on a shoestring. I spent a lot of money on it, tried to find good homes for the dogs. But then, eventually, we have, my wife and I have 3 daughters back. Well, we still have 3 daughters, but they were all little. And that was one of the other things, you got 3 little kids. Wouldn't they love this? Wouldn't they love to see a litter of puppies born? Oh, yeah, what a great lesson for them. Well, don't do it for that reason. Trust me, because when they're little, they're not going to help you clean up. It's still going to be a lot of work.
Right.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, right.
I mean, how many people go like, yeah, we'd love to have a litter dog. Oh, the kids would learn so much from it. No, the kids would learn how to hold puppies. That's all they would learn.
Right. And not only do you have to clean up after the puppies now and the kids.
Yeah, and then you got to change the kids' clothes and throw them. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I got started basically just about like everybody else, unless you came from a family. There's family names in the dog world that they go all the way back to the early 1900s, that their great-grandfather was breeding dogs. So those people grew up, they had not just the resources, they had the background and the knowledge. But, yeah, I just grew up like a typical guy, but just always kind of, looking at somebody else's place. You go visit somebody and like, oh, wow, they got nicer kennel boxes. Oh, you know what? I got to buy them. I got to have better boxes. And, I made my first kennel out of panels, and I said, no, you know what? I went to a kennel. I got to get real kennel panels, like a real kennel. So, I started out on a shoestring and started out just copying everybody. And it just kind of turned into, as far as the Dancing Duke goes, all three of my daughters were in dance class. One of them was good. But mother made them take dance classes for many, many years, okay? So when they weren't at dance class and I was watching them, if and when I was watching them when I'm in town and not working, we always watched old John Wayne movies. So, and True Grit was famous because of, little Maddie Ross, the heroine of the movie, and being a girl about, a little older than them at the time. So it was just a natural thing. I came up with Dancing Duke Kennels because of the girls dancing and my love of John Wayne. So that's the history of the name. Yeah, that's the history of the name. Yeah.
Why did you start the podcast?
Oh, that was something. I started listening to some podcasts about 4 years ago. In fact, well, you and I talked once before, obviously, before we hit the record button a couple weeks ago, and I do once a year. I do a show with Steve Ranella on the Meat Eater with my dog, usually with my dogs. 3 of the episodes have been with my dogs, and so he started a podcast because Joe Rogan talked him into doing a podcast. Literally said, you've got to do a podcast. So I recorded one of his first ones with him in Texas on a hunt, and the minute we hung up the headphones, all I could think of was like, I want to have conversations like this with dog people, because just like, like you like turkey hunt a lot. I hear you, when you're talking on your podcast, and you do some deer hunting. Although I heard your last one, you didn't get near the hunting in this year that you wanted to, but that's another story. But that happens to everybody. But I'm a real social hunter. I don't do a lot of solo hunting. I mean, I will have an hour or two by my house, go out and take the dogs out, take a couple of young dogs out, but I'm real social. And the minute we did that first podcast with Steve, it was like having a poker game, but you're all talking about the same subject, not really paying attention to the poker game. And you just like had one of those great conversations. There's always a drink flowing and everybody telling a story. And I'm like, wow, that's how I said, I got to start. I want to record these things. And literally, I got a little, I guess, nostalgic. My folks have been gone for quite a few years. And I thought how cool it would be to have, I've got pictures of my family, my mom and dad, but it's almost like you can't remember their voice anymore,
Yep.
And who wants to set up an old 8mm thing and a projector to watch movies from me in the 60s when my dad was walking by a grill, and the baseball hit him or something. So I would have loved to had conversations of my dad and his friends when they were golfing or sitting at the VFW hall after World War II, I mean, yep. And like hearing those guys, and always with their, their pants down a little bit. Once a beer or a drink goes into somebody, you really get the stories going, And I said, I would just love to have conversations like that of my mom and dad and their family. We had a big family, and they don't exist. And so one of my catalysts was that someday, I don't know which kids are going to get all my guns because I have way too many shotguns. I don't know which grandkids hopefully will have them. I don't have grandkids yet, but we're praying. But anyway, like they will always be able to go, unless something changes in this world, they're always going to be able to go back. They're going to be able to hear their grandpa or their great-grandpa talk about dogs and his hunting trips with his friends. Because I just had that, I'm a real family person and a real social hunter. You know, you're not going to catch me going on a backcountry bird hunt and camping out for 3 days and hiking up. No, I'm going to drive somewhere. I'm going to hunt for 5 or 6 hours, and we're going to go sit there and talk. We're going to talk ourselves into the next day's hunt, you know. So that's kind of why I started the podcast, and now I'm just having a ball with it. It's growing to a point where I really never thought it would grow, but I guess everything, you know, like everything takes time, you know, until the word gets out. So that's how that got started. And between the kennel and the podcast, I'd like to retire from work so I could just do all that full time.
Yeah. That is quite possibly the coolest reason to start a podcast I have ever heard, honestly. That is very cool.
I kind of thought everybody thought that way, no? You probably talked to a lot of podcasters. Maybe that's not it, huh?
No, well, I started my podcast just because I wanted to learn how to be a better hunter and a better fisherman, and I was blogging, and everybody and their brother has a blog, so getting somebody to take 5 minutes to answer some questions for you was hard. But the minute I mentioned podcast, online talk show, all of a sudden it was, well, sure, I can give you an hour of my time. So that's why I started.
Well, that's a good reason, though. Yeah,
I just wanted to be a better hunter, and I wanted people to talk to me about it.
You're like saying, I got to suck at this. I got to figure out a way. I got to figure out a way to get people's attention and have them listen and answer my questions.
Seriously. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh God, if I had to write people, if I had to type a question to somebody, I'd never have any questions answered. I'm a talker. You know, obviously, you can tell I'm a little bit of a talker.
That's good, though. That's good.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You know, I've never. It's only been just a little over 2 years. I put out about 4 episodes a month. A couple times I'll put in a 5th episode, and there might be times when, you know, I skip, you know, but I've yet to skip yet. And my thing is like, and I don't know if because I know you like, again, you're more of a turkey big game hunter, but you like said you've shot some pheasants and stuff. You've been to some preserves, and in the dog world, there's just always I didn't realize it. I thought I was going to run out of people to talk to, and I don't know if it's that way for you with big game and turkeys, because there's just so many nuances with dogs that it's like, wow, it seems like I got a never-ending list of things to talk about. You know, of course we get off subject once in a while with conservation or public land access. We talk a little bit about that, but very rarely. You know, I'm not smart enough to talk about all those things.
Oh yeah, I can totally understand that, because there's so many different breeds and so many different hunting tactics and hunting styles and training tactics, where really bow hunting for deer is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you got to be quiet. You can't talk. You got to sit in a tree, you know, and try not to what? Try not to fart? I don't get it. I don't get it. In fact, you know what? Now we're on that subject, Carrie, I've been wanting to ask somebody, what is the attraction to sitting in a tree?
So, you know, I'm a turkey hunter more than a deer hunter, right? There's a reason for that, because I like running and gunning and sitting in a tree stand. Oh, my God. You see, my tweets go up exponentially when I'm sitting in a tree stand because I'm freaking bored.
So when you're in a tree, you're what? You're on Facebook and tweeting?
Pretty much.
Oh, nice.
They're like,
nice.
Well, wow, Carrie tweeted 841 times today. She must be hunting.
No wonder why you don't get a lot of animals.
I know. No, all joking aside, that is one of the reasons why turkey hunting appeals to me more than deer hunting. I do like deer hunting, of course, but turkey hunting, they're just so much like bird hunting. You're constantly doing stuff. The animals are more engaged with you. So we're like, you know, with bird hunting, you have a dog, you have something to engage you and keep moving and keep going and keep your attention.
Yeah. I know. I've turkey hunted just a tiny bit. I mean, really, like probably a total of about 4 or 5 mornings. I've yet to get one, but I did like it, and it wasn't like an all-day thing either, you know.
Right.
There's people go up in them trees, and they bring their lunch, you know. And I know my daughter has a boyfriend who films hunts for, what's the name of the, the Kiefer brothers have that show, Dropped Project Alaska?
Sure.
Yeah, those guys. He films for them part-time, and he has to pee in a bottle when he's up in a tree.
I know.
No,
yeah.
I'm not. Anything that makes you do that, I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. No.
I know. I do. I have a hard time with it. I have a hard time sitting still. It is probably why I never get any deer, because I'll sit for a couple hours and I'll be like, oh, well, maybe I should go see what's over the next ridge. Maybe there's something over there to see. And I think
I think maybe you need I'll talk to my friend Tracy. You need a turkey dog.
Right? Oh my God! No joke. I would love to go turkey hunting with a dog. I mean, my God.
Oh, Tracy is the guy. He's in outdoor. He's real heavy duty in outdoor. He makes his living in the outdoor, like in media and brokering things and stuff like that. He's been at it forever. And I couldn't go out with him this year, but he got a couple new dogs, and it is you can't do it in the spring, obviously. It's in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what a cool way to go hunt turkeys. Oh my God.
How fun would that be?
Have you heard how it works and everything? Have you read up on it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did an interview a couple years ago with Steve Hickman, and he has a dog that he takes out and he sits in the blind, he sends her out, and then she goes and scatters them. It sounds like so much fun. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And if you had a shitty bird dog that just didn't listen to you, you might be able to turkey hunt with it in the fall.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know.
You should pass along his information. I would love to interview him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He I'll save all the different things he does. But I mean, we did a podcast together, and the funny thing is, you think about a small niche. That is a small group of people in this country.
Yeah.
That is a tiny group of people in this country. I think I'm up against it sometimes in the bird dog world, but my God, there's a gazillion people that would at least own, oh yeah, I've been to a preserve. Oh yeah, I know a guy who had one. You say turkey dog and people look at you like the RCA dog, huh? What?
I know, totally.
Turkey dog.
Like, what?
But you might be ready for a bird dog. If you don't like to sit in a tree and you like to act, like to move around a little bit, I think a bird dog might be in your future.
I know, and I love pheasant hunting. I don't have a dog, so like I said, I'm pretty limited. So maybe when we buy this new house, we'll see. Never.
Oh, so are you in an apartment then right now?
We live in a condo.
Condo? Yeah, so it's not real conducive for dogs, yeah.
No. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary May 1st. We were like, all right, 10 years here, and then we got to go. We got to buy a bigger house with a yard.
There you go. So. Yeah, well, when you're ready for that, you tell me. I'll help you find a dog. I mean, literally, I'll tell you, Wisconsin, and between Wisconsin and Minnesota, you would have so many choices if you took your time. Seriously, in fact, it would be a problem because you'd be like, honey, let's go look at small Munsterlanders today, and then he'll look at an article. Well, you know what? I want to go look at some wire-haired pointing griffons, and you'll drive yourself crazy. But I'm telling you, Wisconsin and Minnesota, there is a gob of good dog breeders up there. So you're in a good place for it. That's for sure.
Good deal.
You are definitely. But yeah, we got to get you. You'll throw that tree stand away after you have a dog. Trust me.
I know. Well, probably because I'll probably get into fall bird hunting more. I love chasing birds. I love turkey hunting. I do enjoy deer hunting. I do, but I love chasing them. I'll chase them all over the field, left and right. Chase them under trees. Oh my God!
Am I wrong, or aren't you supposed to sit still and be quiet to shoot a turkey?
Nah. Have you
get
not listened to
frustrated.
my Hail Mary turkey hunt episode?
Yeah, I guess I did that. Yeah. So you're trying to do the end around pass and head it off at the pass?
Pretty much. That was the funnest freaking hunt I've ever been on.
Well, I got
shenanigans.
I did shoot one turkey. I'll tell you. I'll try to make this a quick story, but
Okay.
My high school trip. You know, like a lot of people go down to Florida for high school senior class trip.
Yeah.
Me and my friends went down to Tennessee and we went boar hunting. That was our senior class trip. Yeah, for being born and raised in Chicago, I did not fit the mold. I fit the mold with the taverns, believe me. I actually drove a beer truck for 2 years. So which is probably why I have a liver the size of Kansas. But we went to Tennessee, we did some research, and we went boar hunting for our senior class trip, me and 3 guys. And we're down there, and it was turkey season in Tennessee. And so this outfit, and we saved our money for anything. You know, we were all working. I was a bus boy and that kind of stuff. But we saved our money. It wasn't a whole lot of money. We all shared the gas and got down there. And so the lodge said, "Do any of you want to go turkey hunting?" And already having pheasant hunted and stuff a little bit and rabbit hunted, I'm like, "I'd love to." And he says, "Well, it's $50 for a tag." And I'm like, "Okay." You know, I think I probably borrowed 10 from each, and I had 20 in my pocket, but I had to do it. So this guide's name was Buttons, and he takes me way out in the mountains with a Jeep, and we parked the Jeep, and we walk. We're walking out at dark, and we get behind this big rock pile, and he's got one of them box calls. It's like duck, 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 all that stuff, and I'm this is kind of cool, and he kind of nods his head and he nudges me, and he's kind of telling me to look forward, and I'm looking and I don't see nothing, and he's kind of nudging me like a little quicker with his elbow, like, "Come on, you dumb city slicker, there's a turkey walking towards you, And Carrie, I don't see this thing. I don't know what I was looking at. I don't even know. Honestly, I'd never seen a wild turkey in my life. I mean, I knew what they looked like in pictures, but I never saw one, And you know how they kind of just, I don't know how, but they kind of move without making any noise for sure.
Yeah.
And, I mean, unless you're sitting there quiet and something was coming through leaves or something, but it was rocky area and it was oak trees. And finally I see this bird, and he's walking right toward the guy calling, and we're behind rocks, so we're pretty golden. And this turkey's getting closer and closer and closer. It's probably only 15 to 10 yards away. And now I'm kind of just staring at its big head, and he wasn't fanning out, but he was looking all turkey-ish, And so he's kind of trying to tell me to shoot. So I stand up, and I made a big noise like yeah, like that.
Yeah.
And this guy's name is Buttons. He goes, "What the?" And because I'm trying to make I thought you're supposed to shoot him on the wing. I did not know. I did not know you shot a turkey. This is the God's truth on my mother's grave. I had no freaking clue that you would shoot a bird on the ground. I never shot a pheasant on the ground. Why would I shoot a turkey on the ground? And this is no bullshit. That turkey ran about 5 steps and took off, and I dropped it with my Remington 1100. I dropped it, and the guy, he's like, "I've never seen nothing like that in my whole goddamn life." He told that story for 2 more days to anybody who would listen to it. This boy from Chicago comes down here, stands up and says, "Yeah," and makes that turkey fly. I had no idea you were
so funny.
Yeah. I was so. Next time I'm going to actually let it get close and shoot it in the head. I mean, I guess that's probably the proper way to do it, instead of peppering it full of number 2 shot like I did. But no, I dropped that thing on the wing, so I'm an all right wing shooter.
That is hysterical. Oh my God.
So don't invite me on your first fall turkey hunt, because I want to shoot them on the wing.
Oh my gosh. That is too funny.
Well, that's just it. That's me. But no, I mean, I've just I never can understand. I love all. I mean, I'm in favor of all hunting. I'm in favor of high fence hunting. I don't really care as long as we're all on the same page and no one's calling each other names. You know, whatever it takes to stay out there in the outdoor world a little bit. But I can't imagine. I've been accused of loving or that people who hunt with dogs love dogs more than they love hunting. And I'll be honest with you, it's probably 50-50. It really is. And then if you had to throw in the equation, probably love people and dogs more than hunting? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I still go to the store to buy a lot of meat because you can't feed yourself in a year with what you shoot over a dog. I mean, unless you're full-time at it.
Yeah. That's funny. Oh, my gosh.
So are you proficient enough with the shotgun if I show up someday and take you that you could hit something, or would it be a moot point?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. My little 20 gauge has killed more birds than any of my rifles.
Well, that's encouraging. I like the sound of that. That's good. That's good.
Yes. Oh, my God. Could you imagine us hunting together? Oh, my gosh. We would just laugh and have shenanigans left and right.
Yeah. That's especially when you go to a preserve. It's not like you're not risking, like when you're grouse hunting, you can chit chat a little bit, but you really got to pay attention. I mean, you got to be walking at port arms, ready to shoulder that gun. But when you're at a preserve, it's so much more relaxed. Yeah, it would be trouble. I think you're right. It'd be trouble, especially with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know, right? Too funny.
You guys drink too.
Where they can? What's that?
You guys drink too much in Wisconsin.
I know. You think you could keep up?
Well, that was if you heard that, don't edit it. That was the third top I had since we've been talking.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh! See, even the dogs are like, "Yep, let's have some fun."
That's right.
All right, Ron. Well, tell the listeners where they can find out more about you, where they can find your podcast and social media channels.
Well, we are like every podcast on Stitcher and iTunes, Podbean, and I think just about every other thing. We're starting a website. It should come out in February. It's obviously going to be called the Hunting Dog Podcast, and we're going to try to have some game cooking on there, just some standard recipes that work for people. We're going to try to have a question and answer thing where people, if they have a specific question that maybe one of the guests can answer or one of our past guests can answer. We're going to try to make it a kind of a good interactive website, not just a place to figure out how to listen to the podcast. And then, of course, it'll have some sponsored links, and obviously it'll have a lot of conservation links like DU, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, Rough Grouse Society, because, like in anything, with the whitetails and the deer and the turkey, you've got the Turkey Federation, and, all those organizations are doing a lot of good stuff for all of us hunters out there. So, we'll link up to things like that. But, yeah, if they just look up the Hunting Dog Podcast on anything, it'll come up. You'll see it on Stitcher and iTunes. Stitcher is more of an Android, and iTunes, obviously, the iOS, iPhone system. But just like you say, if you do listen, put a rate and a review on there because it makes us up there in the ratings. So,
sure.
But yeah, and when the podcast or when the website comes up, it'll be slow. Have you ever tried that, Carrie? Putting do you have a website that accompanies? I haven't noticed it if you do, or I haven't seen a link to it.
Yeah, I've actually, a lot of times I'll promote the website link rather than the podcast link because people, I think the player on my
podcast.
Yeah, and my player on my website is more friendly than like the Libsyn link.
Right. And that's just another way they can listen to it. But I mean, do you put a lot of content into it for people, or do you find yourself, is it overwhelming? Because I'm starting to get a little nervous about starting it.
It can be overwhelming, and it's hard because like I do a ton of blogging as well as the podcast episodes. But just the post for the podcast episodes, I put all the show notes and all the links, and it is a lot of extra work. But
yeah,
I find that it's a greater return on investment because Google really likes blog posts and not so much with podcasts.
Well, in the next week or two, I'll have to talk to you off record, and you can give me some more tips on that.
Yeah, for sure. I totally will.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Carrie. It's been a ball. We'll try to do something next fall. I'll come over there with a couple of these long-eared Broncos and see how good you are with that 20 gauge.
Oh, that'll be so fun.
All right. Sounds good.
And that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. You can find me on Twitter, Carrie Zylka, CarrieZylka. You can find me on Facebook. You can send me a friend request. You can follow the HuntFishTravel page on Facebook as well. Just search HuntFishTravel. I'm pretty much everywhere. Any social media. So go find me. Say hi. And if you found value in this episode, head over to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and leave me a 5-star review and a comment, if you would. Alternatively, if you'd like to support the show, you can check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/HuntFishTravel, all one word. Donate $1, you can buy me a cup of coffee. And thank you for your support.